Hello and welcome back, and once again we're talking about mods on the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, and in this episode we're going to forget all that stuff about horsepower and performance because today we're just focusing purely on bling, eye candy. So if you want to bring a bit of sexy to your Interceptor 650 or GT, stick around. I'm going to show you 6 things that I've done on my bike. So the first thing to mention when it comes to these type of mods is that it's all super subjective. You know, we're all human, we all see things differently. This is just what I've done on my bike. I'm not going to sit here all arrogant and tell you what's right and what's wrong. I don't have any affiliation with any of the companies I'm about to mention. I'll leave some links in the description, but that's just to be helpful. I don't get any money if you click those links, just whatever, you know, I'm just a customer. So this is just stuff that I've done. Right, so we'll start at the back of the bike. And talking of back, I actually had a real eureka moment when I discovered this company. They're called BAAK. They're a French company, BAAK. They have actually got a whole catalogue of amazing bits and pieces that you can put on your Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. And they range from just individual parts up to full custom kits. They've really gone to town on these bikes, which is great to see. And if, like me, you know, I'm not a metal fabricator, I can't, you know, start making my own brackets and that kind of stuff. I just need to buy stuff off the shelf. They've got an awesome little selection of custom parts. So first on my list is the BAAK Taillight. Now, there's nothing wrong with the stock taillight. It's a kind of very classic 1970s Lucas style design. It's integrated in with the indicators and it's all right, it's fine, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I've gone for this very classic round style LED tail light. The thing I like about it is that it just kind of declutters the back of a bike quite nicely. It's a much kind of lower profile unit, a bit smaller, but it's very bright thanks to those LEDs. They really do kick out quite a lot of light, whether that's just the standard tail lights or with the brake lights on. And I just like the fact it's a complete unit. It also kind of holds the number plate here as well, as you can see. It just makes the back of the bike look really tidy and a little bit unique and special. Before I discovered BAAK, I had tried a few generic tail lights that I found on eBay, and they really didn't do the job for me at all. Wasn't happy with the quality, but very happy with this unit from BAAK. Now, talking about lights, moving on to my second point, we get to the indicators. Now, my kind of view on indicators with this bike was I wanted to make them as minimal as possible. And the reason for that is it's kind of the truest form when it comes to classic British twins. In fact, indicators weren't really made law, I think, until the mid-1980s. So a lot of the bikes in the 60s and 70s, they didn't have indicators. Well, certainly not the British bikes. And I think the original Interceptor also didn't have indicators. So what I wanted to do was create a really low profile look. I wanted to get a set of indicators that essentially weren't really visible when they weren't active. But of course, we have to be safe. And we want something that's got the technology in it to give us a really brilliant light when they're being activated. So I chose these Motogadget Moblaze Pins. Now these are tiny little pins, as you can see here. We've got them on the back of the bike. They're attached to the number plate bracket via some custom brackets that I got from BAAK. So you can choose custom brackets for the back and also for the front as well. They go on the lower part of the triple on the front of the bike. And as you can see with these things, you know, they're really incognito when they're not on, but they do kick out a good strong beam of light when you need to turn in and activate them. A couple of things to mention if you're going to install these. One is you're going to need to get a LED relay. So it's going to give you the right pace in the blink. And also when you're installing them, just make sure that you pitch them in the right direction because they are directional lights. So they have a little lens inside them. So it's very important that you point them the right way. I think the first ride I had with these set up, I didn't have them pointed correctly and they were very dim. So figured that one out pretty quickly. But I think they're great. I think they look really cool and they do the job nicely. So the next piece of jaw-dropping eye candy to talk about on this bike has to be the Motone Customs Headlight Brackets. Now, I'm a big fan of Motone Customs. I think they make some really lovely parts. These are not specifically made for the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, but they do fit rather well. They're a bit of a faff to get on because you've got to take the top yoke off and all that and slide them down onto the stanchions. And also bear in mind, if you're changing the factory headlight bracket, you're going to need to find another solution for the indicators as well because they're all integrated, which is part of the reason why I've got the Motogadget Moblaze Pins up front. So you just slide these on, super easy to install once you're going to get the yoke off and all that. I have had to use a couple of 10mm brackets just to get a better purchase on the headlight, but I think you'll agree they really do add a lot to this bike. They are super well made. I love the design of them. They're kind of machined aluminium. They really clean up the stanchions, make it look a lot tidier up front, and just kind of declutter the front of the bike, give it a bit more of a pared back, minimalistic, classic look. So I'm a big fan of those headlight brackets from Motone Customs. So moving on to the next upgrade, and we're going to go back to BAAK, towards the back of the bike, but actually on the side. These are the side panels from BAAK. Now these are a little bit Marmite. A lot of people aren't sure about these because they're quite industrial. They're a little bit sparse, a little bit barren, because we're removing that beautifully designed Royal Enfield factory piece, which has the emblems and all that kind of stuff on it. It has Interceptor written on the side. These are a lot more stripped back, a lot more minimalistic, and as I said, a little bit more industrial in their design. Now, firstly, they're made out of metal, which I think is an upgrade over a plastic part, especially if you've got a bike that proclaims to be built like a gun. You know, guns are made of metal. A couple of downsides on these. One is that they are quite kind of slim, so you have to remove the tool roll, which is a bit of a pain. And secondly, I found the side with the lock to be a little bit fiddly sometimes to get back in, so you need to watch out for that. But they are beautifully made parts. I think they look great, and especially when paired with the BAAK tank pads as well. You've got this lovely kind of set of horizontal lines that in some weird way plays off with the engine fins as well. So you've got, you know, horizontal lines running through the side panels, across the tank pads and the engine fins. You know, they don't line up perfectly, but I think they look quite nice, and it definitely looks like a well-considered design feature. So I'm happy with those. They're not going to be for everyone, but I think they look rather cool. So next up on my list, we have the Oberon Performance bar end mirrors. Now, a little bit of an unusual one for me because I don't usually like bar end mirrors. Anything that adds width to the bike is not ideal, but I was kind of cornered into this one because I upgraded the brake master cylinders to the RCS15 and the clutch perch to the TWM clutch perch. That meant that I lost my mirror mounts, which is a little bit unfortunate. So the easiest solution by far was just to get some bar end mirrors. And I spent quite a lot of time looking at different options. There's everything from big, nasty chrome classic things to Chinese knockoffs and everything in between. I couldn't find anything I really liked until I spotted these tiny little mirrors from Oberon Performance, British company, super well made, and critically very low profile. You hardly notice they're there. And one of the best things about these mirrors is they're really flexible in terms of how you set them up. You can have them pointing up, you can have them pointing down, you can have them justified to the left, justified to the right. Loads of different ways you can set them up, and they also do a really good job of letting you see what's behind you, most importantly. So yeah, I'm super happy with those. Best thing about them is they're really low profile and they don't stick out too much, and they're just super solid. They look great. So for my final point in my list of 6, I want to talk about the collective look of some of the performance mods on this bike. Now, it's a bit of a cheat to do that in this because these aren't strictly just for eye candy. These were originally put on the bike for what they would bring in terms of performance, but actually I think they look quite nice as well. So looking at things like the Scorpion Red Power pipes, love the fact that these are a much smaller, much more slender unit, and I love these kind of black end cap details on the back here. We've got the YSS shocks as well, loving that blacked out look, although not a massive fan of the boy racer style graphics on the piggyback, but I can live with that. Things like the blacked out LSL bars, paired with the Motone Customs up and over risers, I think work really well. And just, you know, all of those kind of premium parts coming together, little details like the Rizoma fluid cap on the RCS15 and the TWM clutch perch and all that, they come together, they give the bike a much more premium look and feel. So those performance mods, although that's not their primary function, I definitely feel that they've brought a lot to this bike in terms of aesthetic value as well. So there you have it. Those are the 6 things that I've done on the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 to make it just a little bit more unique to me. And as I said at the start of the video, this is all very subjective. This is just what I think looks good. For me, I wanted to lean into that kind of classic retro look and feel with a few little modern touches, and really just to kind of declutter where possible as well. I think it's worked out quite well. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and also got to say a massive thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the channel recently too. We're now at around 5,000 subscribers, which is just incredible. Thank you so much to everyone that's hit subscribe, and if you haven't, maybe you would consider subscribing. That would be awesome. And until the next one, ride safe.